In this video, I'd like to tell you what the eviction laws in this country did to me. Back in 2015, I had a few projects in mind and I made the serious mistake of renting out my home, which is not a castle, it's just a beautiful, quaint little cottage in a village on the edge of Northampton. But for me, I absolutely love it. I love the fact that I live in somewhere that has a history going back over 200 years, and I'm privileged to be just another small chapter in the history of this property. But anyway, so I rented the property on an assured tenancy back in the summer of 2015 for 6 months, which is what the tenants wanted. They renewed for another 6 months, and then by the summer of 2016 I had intended to move back. I was away during the summer. While I was away, the people in the property moved out and they moved a friend in, despite the fact that I told them not to and did not give them permission to do so. I got back to the UK beginning of September 2016 and I found a woman living in here with 2 children. I came to see her and I told her that I did not want to re-rent the property. I didn't give permission for the property to be re-rented. I don't want to be unreasonable. I can see that you have children, so I said to her, look, it's beginning of September. I'll give you till Christmas. In fact, so that I don't distress you through the holidays, you can move sometime just after the new year. She said yes. Wonderful. Thought that would be sorted. Came back in January, asked her what's happening. She said, well, the council told me I mustn't go. I contacted the council and I was informed. This is where I actually pointed out something in my previous video. I learnt this the hard way. The council then informed me that because I had accepted a rent from this woman, she has an assured tenancy, whether I have given it in writing to her or not, and therefore I couldn't just force her out. Having a tenant in a property with an assured tenancy but without something in writing, 9 out of 10 solicitors, it stumps them. I paid, I think, 3 or 4 different solicitors upwards of £200 each just to have a look at what I'd sent them in an email, which was basically a 1-page summary, so that they could then tell me what they're going to charge to help me with this. And the problem was, for me, was that she moved in after the 2015 Deregulation Act, which meant that she then argued further down the line, or I was told, but she did, but I was told by the solicitors that she would probably argue that she wasn't given a gas safety certificate, a how to rent certificate, EPC, etc. before moving in, meaning that the court would reject a Section 21 eviction. This went on for 2 years. Finally, I found some solicitors in London who explained to me the process of how they would go about it. I had no choice at this point. I was a lot of money out of pocket, money I'd paid solicitors for, advice that was not advice whatsoever. It was just a token gesture to justify them charging me to just read a 1-page summary. In total, I had my personal effects in storage for over 3 years, which was over £5,000 alone. And I was actually effectively homeless through this period because I had just sold the last of my buy-to-lets when this happened, because I had other plans. So I was left in limbo through all this period. I'd spent a fortune in legal fees. Eventually we went to court with a manual application. We had to go before a judge. As I said previously, we went twice and both times the judge sort of found in her favour to delay. We now had entered 2019, and if you remember, on the home stretch to the election, This was when Corbyn was promising that if he were to get into power, he would give private tenants the right to buy. So I started panicking that I was going to lose my home. Anyway, cut a long story short, in the end, I overcame the argument about the gas safety certificate and so on, because although I was away, a friend of mine had dropped the paperwork off, and she was a magistrate, so she made a sworn statement to that effect. And realising that she was going to be evicted as soon as she found another property, fortunately she moved out, and fortunately there was no damage to my property, but I was thousands of pounds out of pocket, a 5-figure sum, not to mention the stress and inconvenience and the fact that my life was on hold for 3 years while I was in limbo. This was all perfectly legal, and this could happen to you. So be very, very, very careful that if a tenant moves into your property and allows someone else to move in, if you exercise any kindness and give them a few weeks, they will then become a tenant. The same argument that I said about squatters moving in, the same can be done with tenants forcing themselves on your property, because if they move in, if they deposit money into your bank account, which they could get the details from the previous tenant, they could move in, pay some money into your account. You might not take any notice of it because you may think your tenant has paid you rent just from a different account, but in fact that payment has come from somebody else, and suddenly you are stuck with a new tenant with no tenancy, and with the impending removal of the Section 21, you will seriously have a nightmare on your hands. So whilst I completely support anything to give tenants security and peace of mind, there are many circumstances where landlords need to be protected as well, especially the thousands of landlords who are literally let to buy landlords or accidental landlords. Perhaps you've decided to rent out your home because you've been given a job in another part of the country for 6 months or a year. What happens then if your job ends, or it ends prematurely, and you can't recover your home? Just a few thoughts for you to ponder on over the weekend, and I will see you in the next video.